Right, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to almost the last session of this Digital Health and Wellness Summit. I'm Karolina Mackiewicz. I'm the Innovation Director at the ECH Alliance, and it's my pleasure to moderate this session on a reimbursement model for digital health. So we want to talk today about who pays for digital health and how different reimbursement models can help you, if you're the innovator and the solution provider, scale up your business. So we will explore this together with my speakers. Well, first speaker is Louisa Stuve from the French Ministry of Health and Prevention. Unfortunately, she cannot be with us today, so we have her video address. But we have here François Guirec-Champensou from representing a French company, Curati. We have Sandra Garcia Armesto, Director of ACUAS. So for those from Catalonia, you know ACUAS very well. It's the Health Technology Assessment Agency here in Barcelona. And also representing a Spanish company, we have Frederic Jordax Marquez from the Spanish company Yamalitica. And representing the German perspective from the FH Europe Foundation, Tobias Sieber-Zahn. Tobias used to work at McKinsey, has a very good understanding of the industry and also the uptake of the digital solutions. And I will be the moderator. The session will have two short presentations about the reimbursement model. Maybe some of you are familiar with the names PECAN. Do you know PECAN, the French reimbursement model? Anyone knows that? Maybe yeah, okay, some hands, not many. What about the DIGA, the German reimbursement model? Okay, some more. And well, there is no reimbursement model in Catalonia. Sandra will and Frederic will comment on that. Is it good? Is it bad? What can we learn? In any case, the session builds on one session we did 2 years ago at the occasion of the Digital Health Society Summit, where we explored how the reimbursement models can help us take up or uptake, scale up, adapt the digital solutions. And back then we concluded that, well, having a good reimbursement model, maybe European-wide reimbursement model, is something that will help us on this journey. I know already after discussing with some of my speakers that this is not maybe like something we will agree here today, that we necessarily need reimbursement models to scale up the digital solutions. Maybe there are other ways. And before we jump into the presentations, I said there will be two, one on PECAN, one on DIGA. I would like to get you, and I would like to get you, if you can make an effort, small effort, take your phone, scan the code. And the question is, what is the biggest barrier to digital health reimbursement today? What is the biggest barrier to digital health reimbursement today? And you have some options there, right? You have administrative burden, evidence requirements, lack of standardized policies, slow approval process, lack of harmonized European framework. I think you have 30 seconds to vote. So we will wait a couple of more seconds. You can also go, of course, to Menti and put the code. Right, let's wait. So, what is the biggest barrier? Administrative burden, evidence requirements, lack of standardized policies, slow approval process, lack of harmonized European framework. What do we have here? Let's read so here we have like, okay, more responses are coming. Evidence requirements, lack of harmonized European framework is the second one, lack of standardized policies, slow approval processes. And someone said other. Who was the person who said other? Okay, can you shout out what is the other? I don't know if we have mic around, but you can maybe come closer. Okay. Okay, can you just shortly say?
Yes. Hi, my name is Ricardo Sainz. I'm the Global Director for Digital Health Solutions in ASI. I think the biggest barrier is change management.
Okay.
I think we're not used to pay for digital health.
Okay.
And medication is actually mandatory to address the symptoms of a disease, whereas digital health isn't.
Thank you very much for bringing that to our attention. So change, I think we can comment on that also a little bit later. And going further, I would like to then invite our colleague who unfortunately cannot be with us right now, so Louisa Stuve from the French Ministry of Health and Prevention. She has the short video presentation where she is speaking about the PECAN model. I think there was 3 hands. 3 of you said that you've heard about the model, so I hope that it will be also helpful for you. I don't know if you're going with your solution to the French market, but regardless, I hope that it will be helpful. So can I ask my colleagues for the... yes?
Hello, my name is Louisa Stuve, and I work for the French Ministry of Health at the Digital Health Delegation. It's my pleasure today to speak to you about the early access to reimbursement for digital medical devices in France, also referred to as PECAN. This presentation was developed together with my colleague Vincent Vercamer, who's actually the focal point for PECAN in France and who you may contact for any further questions. Genius will also provide you any further responses to any topics I'll raise today. First, what does it include? Both digital therapeutics and remote patient monitoring. This scheme has been operational since March 2023 in France, and it aims to accelerate patient access to innovative digital medical devices. It allows for the temporary reimbursement of those solutions by French National Health Insurance for the period of 1 year. That period is non-renewable, while enabling those manufacturers to finish the applications for the incorporation of the standard reimbursement procedure while already deploying the solution. So the objectives of PECAN, I think they're quite clear: to accelerate patient access to those promising solutions, to encourage also innovation thereof, because you offer manufacturers the opportunity to deploy their products more quickly, and to still collect relevant clinical and economic data that enable to assess the real-world effectiveness and efficiency of DMDs. There's nothing better than to have data from patients already using that solution in real life. First, innovativeness. That seems obvious, but you need to provide initial proof of notable improvement over existing solutions. Second, maturity. The product must be sufficiently developed for real-world deployment. And third, safety and security. The DMD must have regulatory certifications, including the CE markage, and to attest its safety for patients. Now, we can say that a successful application contains both that initial evidence of the claimed benefit, but also a justification that the remaining clinical or organizational evidence will be available before the end of PECAN. So during that year, so it means that after 6 months of deployment, you already need to have that process of filing for permanent reimbursement ongoing. And third, you need to prove somehow an appropriate comparison against either standard of care or an alternative reimbursed solution or the absence thereof. But there needs to be sufficient justification in that regard. As I said beforehand, solutions that are being considered are both DTX, digital therapeutics. They are also CE marked, as I said beforehand, so that this can be medical device applications or software and so on that are used to treat and manage specific health conditions. Examples: solutions for diabetes treatment, cognitive rehabilitation, or chronic pain management. A second type of solution that's being reimbursed as part of PECAN are remote telemonitoring activities. These are also CE marked, and those are tools that allow healthcare professionals to remotely track the health status of patients with specific health conditions. For example, platforms for monitoring patients with chronic heart failure, diabetes, or acute respiratory diseases. Those are CE marked Acuity Tech Care Solutions. So that's a remote monitoring platform dedicated to oncology. It enables healthcare professionals to remotely track the health status of cancer patients. Continuum deploys a unique approach that integrates local nurses, a coordination support unit, and a remote medical monitoring application. And a third one, which is Examove, that's the company deploying a digital platform that specializes in rehabilitation and adapted physical activity. And it offers a personalized program that allows patients to perform exercises at home while being still remotely monitored by healthcare professionals. So you see, the area of solutions is quite large here in terms of solutions that can be reimbursed. And we strongly encourage applicants to come and try and apply for reimbursement. Thanks to Picon, these innovations can now benefit from faster market access while still finishing the demonstration of their clinical benefit before potential integration into the standard reimbursement system. Therefore, from all actors, Picon has been perceived as a significant advancement for the digital innovation and digital healthcare system. The challenges regard, obviously, the sustainability of reimbursement after that one-year period, but also the integration of digital medical devices into standardized healthcare pathways, but also the reuse and prescription by healthcare professionals and the use of patients, which are not yet necessarily familiarized with that. And we count on all of your support to make that possible. And in the meantime, stay tuned and look at what we do on Genius, where everything here I just said is explained in detail. Thank you so much.
This was the introduction of the PECAN model from Luisa Stuwe from the ministry, and we have here among our speakers the representative of the Cureti, so one of the companies that were shown. So I have some questions to the company, but before we go there, before we go into the discussion, I would like to ask Tobias, coming from Germany, having also experience in this area, to tell us a bit about the German model called DIGA.
Yeah, thank you, Carolina. Very happy to.
Oh? Okay,
there we go.
Yes.
Maybe next slide.
Can we ask for the next slide? Okay.
Yeah, so the DIGA model is now almost 5 years old, or a little bit more than 5 years old. It was put in law in 2019. And the idea was initially to be very focused on digital therapeutics. So that means a digital solution with a direct impact on patient medical outcomes. The interesting bit there, or the new bit at the time, was that it was a combined regulatory and reimbursement process, where then a company goes through that process and then gets regulatory approval, which then automatically means also national reimbursement by all public health insurances in the country. And maybe if we go to the next page, there were then two registration paths. You could go if you had clinical evidence already, where you could say, here is the data, here we improve patient outcomes in mental health or diabetes or something else from X to Y. And then you could go directly for regular listing, which would be reviewed and done with a target of 3 months by the regulator. Or if you don't have the clinical evidence yet, but the concept, and you can show that your app is secure, then you could go for the lower arm, the probation listing, and then you would already be on the market, but you would then have 12 months to provide the clinical evidence and the improved patient outcomes. If we go to the next page, the other part that people found interesting about the concept is that the first 12 months you would have free pricing, so the digital health company would set the price. We've seen all sorts of prices up to 2,000 euro for 1 quarter of solution. The average price right now is about 450 euro per quarter, and currently there are 59 digital therapeutics listed in Germany for national reimbursement. While you are on the market, you then already get ready for price negotiation with the Health Insurance Association. If you can't agree on a price with them, that will then go to an arbitration board. And once the arbitration board then sets the price, And if there is a price cut, the digital health company then needs to repay the money that they made or the extra money that they made in those months in between, which has also led to an insolvency at one point, where then after the arbitration board cut the price by about 50%, then the digital health company had to pay back quite a sum of money. Overall, I would say, and I would subscribe to that gentleman who said that change management is an important piece, because at the end of the day, we had now about 235,000 prescriptions in the year 2023. The full year data for 2024 isn't out yet, but if you compare 235,000 prescriptions in a country like Germany, then you might ask, what is the total number of all prescriptions that is happening in that country? And that is close to 800 million, right? So if you then do the maths, you see that it is a very low percentage, right? It grows by about 50 to 100% each year. So the prescriptions pretty much almost doubled from 2022 to 2023, but there is still a lot of doctors who haven't tried it yet, or maybe prescribed it once, but not regularly. I think the final thing I wanted to say is that based on this initial experience, the German Ministry of Health in their latest digital health strategy now said that they will expand the concept. So there are three things they have mainly in mind. One is that they want to go beyond Class 1 and Class 2A medical device, and they will include also Class 2B. The other thing that I also find important is that they will also allow that features that would be more around patient remote monitoring that we've heard about, the PCAN model, that they can also be included in the model, right? Because we had quite a few instances where then people said, well, digital therapeutics is good, right? But why don't we use the app if the patient has it already, not also for remote monitoring purposes, where then the patient submits data every now and then to show how they are doing in real life. So the concept is becoming broader as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much for this presentation, introducing us to DIGA, and also maybe raising some things that we can discuss. I wonder. I mean, I think there were 5 hands raised when I asked about DIGA, but I wonder if there is anyone by any chance from representing a company, the German company, or the company that is, which solution is being reimbursed by DIGA under DIGA in this room. Okay, so yeah, I think you said 59 currently. Okay, so it's also not that big.
I think in total it was 69, and 10 of them got either retracted or not granted after the review of the evidence. So out of the 69 initial ones, there are 59 in the market, and I would say about 50% of them are in the mental health neurology space, right, around anxiety, depression, etc. And then the other half is covering pretty much all sorts of things, from diabetes to fear of spiders.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, of course, we would be also very, very interested to hear more about the experiences of the German companies with DIGA, and I have, of course, some stories to share. But before going there, Sandra, representing Catalonia here in Spain. So France and Germany have those structured models. But what about regions still developing their frameworks, like, for example, Catalonia? How are the digital solutions currently financed here? And do you think that the reimbursement model, like that you were missing a piece in this digital health innovation pathway without the reimbursement model?
Well, actually, I think you always learn a lot from front runners, so you really need to be thankful for the people that started before you. So thank you very much, guys. I look at you, though it should be Luisa. Anyways, one of the things that I would like to say, just to start, and that's part of the discussion we have just before coming on a stage, is that one of the things that we have realized is that we are not talking about drugs. We are talking about non-drug products.
Yes.
So actually, the market is extremely dynamic. The technology is evolving at a pace that is difficult to keep with. So the point here is not to procure or reimburse one device or a set of devices, because they will be obsolete very soon. So what we are aiming for, and what actually is all about the benefits basket, both the common benefits basket at the national level and at any regional level, the complementary that we have, is about procuring services. So it's a very different approach. I mean, I realize that there are a lot of virtues in trying to steer the side of developers, right? And accelerating the process of regulation, which I guess it was your main. I mean, I was much more familiar with the German pathway than with the French one, for obvious reasons. It has been there longer. So ours, what we are doing, we actually want to build an ecosystem. We are actually in the middle of doing so, in which we are able to give to the market, to this very dynamic market, signals, very clear signals of which are the priorities on which the health system will be investing. So it's kind of a mission-based innovation approach, which is, those are our priorities, guys, and we will be very interested in solutions that can be turned into part of our services and adopted. So whenever your solution, and there's an open call, whenever your solution fits in these kind of priorities that we do have, we have a framework for assessing it, and it's publicly available for you. And if we see that it's promising on the basis of your dossier, we will be able to fast track that solution. It's true that we are also aiming for a certain level of maturity. Our predilection definitely will be CE mark. However, we realize that there are some other things that are going on there, and we want to accompany them in evidence production, which is one of the things that Luisa also mentioned. I don't know if I'm speaking too long, Caroline. You should have to stop me. So it's a very different approach from this perspective. And the fast trackings are there, and the other thing is that the assessment frameworks, the evidence that we would ask to actually be able to buy that solution within a service that is totally interoperable, compatible with our data systems, and that should feed. That's probably my last remark for this round. That's another remark I would like to put on. I think the claim for change as a major issue, or the one that you actually also highlighted, the whole point is that digital health is a branch of service, once again. So the cascade of organizational changes that need to be actually managed and actually taken into account and put forward once you are actually adopting any branch or any issue of a piece of digital technology or digital services are as important as the digital device itself.
And Sandra, so the approach is very different, and I wonder if you why it is so different. Like if we're talking about the need for those reimbursement structured reimbursement models in other countries, and also the need for the European-wide reimbursement frameworks. So why do you think that then the structured reimbursement framework would not be part of this cultural change?
It will be. It will be. It would. I mean, definitely, it will be. However, if we are helping to develop it, let's share, right?
Right.
So let's have a proper contract that actually help all of us to go. To arrive to the place where we need to be. I mean, if you have already a very mature service, let me say technological service that actually fits very well with what is needed, definitely it's a normal purchase. So, reimbursement, probably another difference is whenever in Spain, all around Spain, you say that something is reimbursed, it's legally binding, and it's available to the whole population. That means that adoption here. That's why we don't say we want to license the Da Vinci robotics. That's one thing we learn a lot. We don't want the Da Vinci. What we want is robotical surgery for a certain type of patients in a certain type of indication, and that is guaranteed for every Spanish citizen in need.
Yeah, thank you. And Francois, I'm looking now at you as the representative of the French company, and one of those not so many that are actually now being under the PECAN system. Can you tell us a little bit about the process? Luisa, in her presentation, she said that you had to in one way or another, proves the innovativeness of the solution. Can you shortly explain us how this path from the company perspective looks like? Was it easy? Was it troublesome? And does it actually pay off?
Well, first, thank you for the invitation. Super happy to be here to share Curity experience. So was it hard? Yes, it was. We had to generate a set of evidence prior applying to the PECAN process. In fact, the PECAN framework went into the law in 2023, and we were operating as a company since 2018. So we had some time to generate evidence, but we had to survive for all this period to establish alternative business model prior to that. So when we applied to the PECAN, we were pretty mature. We already did several studies. We assessed the performance of the algorithm to make sure the triage system of Curity for cancer patients was effective and not creating any risk in the cancer pathways. We, of course, assessed the, in another study, the satisfaction and the adherence of the patients with the system, whatever their age, because it's super important to have a system that is working for older patients that account for most of the cancer patients in the world. And third, we had to do what's the most critical for go from the PECAN to the permanent reimbursement, which is to generate a proof with a randomized clinical trial on the organizational benefit and clinical benefit, ideally both. And we succeeded to obtain with a randomized study with 100 patients a super strong benefit for organizational for the organization of the nurse. So basically, we reduce by 66% significantly, the workload in terms of phone calls, outgoing and ingoing phone calls for nurses, which enable us to prove that our system is empowering nurses to treat more patients, which is something very critical for the French system. And second proof we achieved, which is something quite normal with remote patient monitoring, is the reduction of the number of days of hospitalization. We reduced by 60% the number of the mean hospitalization of cancer patients. So all in all, a big impact on morbidity and cost for the health system.
So you had really an evidence that you could show, but just like fast forward. So now you are in this system, and do you feel that it pays off? That it
of course, it pays off. Okay. So maybe some numbers to give you a clue of the traction we get. We now work with 130 hospitals in France. We account for 30% market share. We are the leading player in remote patient monitoring in oncology. And before PECAN, early 2023, we were generating monthly 200 prescriptions per month, so very small volumes. To date, we are generating 2,500 new prescriptions each month. And we have crossed the 20,000 patients monitored. So we are at the beginning of the journey. Of course, we need to achieve 100,000 active patient file, but it's quite a good start, I will say. And I think what is making the reimbursement framework a success in France, and we look very closely at the German model to evolve towards that approach, it is the dual reimbursement. Because we benefit as an editor, as a reimbursement on a monthly basis, but the hospital staff is also paid on a monthly basis. They get something like 25-30% of the total amount of the money that is paid, and it's super important because when you are a company change and when you want to conduct change, you need to improve the organizational resources, the hospital staff, and they need to be paid for the work they do when they monitor patients remotely.
Thank you so much, Frederic. You were like reacting to what Francois was saying. So you represent here in this panel a Spanish company.
Well, more than a Spanish company, the small startup that is still
small
struggling
startup
to be here. No?
All right. So tell us a little bit, like, to reacting to what you are hearing. If the lack of the reimbursement model in Spain, do you feel is slowing down the development of the solution, uptake of the solution developed by the companies like yours? And if you would wish that something like PECAN or DIGA or another framework exists in Spain and you could apply?
Well, it's interesting because we talk talking in a regional vision of Spain. That is what we do. The thing is that we have 17 regions. That is 17 different healthcare systems. So then, not only this, but if you try to launch a new service, you go knocking doors hospital to hospital. So that means you go, and it's the only way to start something. So you try to get this clinical evidence. So you ask for a proof of concept or whatever. That most of the time they ask you not to pay. How can I pay for something that you are testing? No, and this is very Spanish, I would say. I hope that this is Spanish, but. That means that in other case we are.
It's not Spanish, don't worry.
Very Spanish, no? Okay, why I'm not moving to France? Come on. So then, and it's an open market. Yes, I wish we had the money to go there. The other thing is that it's very expensive. So going to a PECAN or going to a DIGA, once you have the CE mark, I think maybe I'm wrong, but as far as I know, if you have the CE mark, if you go to DIGA, you must do again 3 months with German patients the checking of the solution. So you're doing twice the same thing that has been approved previously. So, and we talk about Trump and how he's closing borders. So there is some kind of protectionism for not going from one country to the other. So and this is it's not about the money. It's more about how to rise at least some kind of relevance in the market to be seen as a solution for real problems that they have, right. Like chronic diseases, like follow-up of patients, like things that really are more expensive than this kind of solutions that we, startups that you can find around, are offering to the system. And it's very hard getting into the system and be seen as a competitive thing because the system is measuring us, you said it very slowly but very nicely, that but it was what I had in mind. That is, digital solutions are seen like medical devices, and medical devices are seen as drugs. So we are measuring things that technologically can have a small life span because they will be replaced for better solutions. And we are using the same way to measure it and to search for evidence and drugs I guess that you know that the time to market for a drug is about 10 years. Mm-hmm. Okay, so then they have been 5 years to be relevant in a market as a solution, as a digital health solution. 5 years. Then you need a lot of money to be on that.
So, Frederic, do I understand that then the reimbursement model, this doesn't matter, that would create more hurdles for you and your company? And then, Sandra, you want to react?
For me, it's more about being, it would be nice to have, is to be, to be in, I have the evidence, I can get the evidence, that the evidence would be, okay, fine, for any country around Europe, at least a European community, because we have the same regulations for drugs. Why can't we have the same regulation for digital health solutions? And once we have this validation, it's just putting a price on that. Mm-hmm. Every country can choose it, but at least be on the list, no? Be part of that.
Yeah. I saw Sandra and then Francois.
You wanna go? Okay. I make it short. Digital solutions are medical devices, and that's part of the deal that we have here. And I think the solution is ongoing. So later, because Caroline has problems, we are going there later. They are medical devices. We are talking about things that have an impact, a direct impact on someone else, on someone's health, one of us health. So they are. Regulation is there and is common. I agree with you in many things, but one of them is that it's not about not having a safe navigation of the system. It's about everybody having the same map and the same rules for navigation. And I think we are heading there at European level. The misconception from the beginning, and I've said it before nicely and slowly, and now I say it more roughly if you want, is that the whole regulation was really advanced, and most of the agencies of the assessment, technology assessment agencies in Europe, were, including the EMA, was totally specialized on drugs. And the drug model doesn't apply to the medical devices models for a myriad of reasons. So, for the agencies that have been really working in health technology assessment for 25, 30 years, which is the case of the ones in Spain, and definitely from the Catalonian, which is the oldest, that has been an issue all the way through. And now we have reached to a point where actually we have separate legislation, separate regulations, and I think we can have these navigation rules, these common navigation rules.
Francois.
Two comments on what you said. I think, and I don't want to talk about on behalf of the French Ministry of Health, but I think there are ongoing talks around harmonizing DIGA and PECAN process, at least obtaining a DIGA if you get a PECAN, and reverse-wise being able to access the French market if you get a DIGA without doing a new study. I'm not sure where stands the discussions yet, but of course all countries want to harmonize the rules. And I think all health agencies are looking to assess the transposability of the data that comes from a given country to another, that's for sure. But for now, because it's the beginning of the journey, I believe that it will take a bit of time to accept a study demonstrating a proof in a country to grant a reimbursement in another country in Europe. We all look to that front, and we have a governmental agency working towards that goal, but I hope this will come. Second thing regarding the difference between we do software medical device, and it's of course different endpoints when you assess a software medical device and you're not developing a drug. I think it's important to remain creative in terms of endpoints, because you work with clinical research organizations that are doing studies on drugs and medical device on a traditional manner. You need to be creative, and for example, at our level, we invented a criteria on ongoing and outgoing phone calls, which was something totally new, and the health authorities in France, they were a bit surprised by this criteria, but in the end they accepted it. They accepted the reasoning behind it, which was empowering nurses to help them monitor more patients.
Thank you. Tobias, back to Germany. You said that actually the prescriptions issued under DIGA, this is like, I don't know, I didn't do the proper math, but it sounded like a promille, not even a percentage of all prescriptions. Why is that? So what is the reason that actually the system is maybe, I don't know, it's not picking up, it's not being treated like it's too difficult, or is it the companies actually don't see the value? Can you comment on that?
Well, initially it was that many doctors were unaware how to do it, and of course, if you're a doctor and you write 50 prescriptions for normal medications each day, and suddenly then there is the question of how do I write a prescription for a digital therapeutic, right? And then a lot of the doctors were then worrying, do I then help the patient, need to download the app, and then do I need to answer 10 questions about whether it works on this phone or on that phone? So there were a lot of those those kind of barriers where doctors were then uncomfortable with the potential questions that they might get. But, I think that's a normal change process, and we see the number sort of either doubling each year or growing by 50, 70%. And I think now we've reached a stage where about 50% of the doctors have at least once tried it, and about another 20% of doctors saying that they want to try it next year. But I think to your point earlier around services, right, we also see that a very narrow description of a prescription digital therapeutic, where then a patient goes through a cognitive behavioral therapy course over 1 quarter to then improve a certain metric, right? It is in many cases helpful, but in other cases it's just part of a much broader chronic disease management process that includes teleconsultations, patient remote monitoring, diagnostics, digital diagnostics, e-prescription renewals. So in that sense, right, there is now also that push to make it broader and implement it into broader chronic disease management.
And I think you actually answered a little bit my final question. I'm aware of the time running, but I wanted to ask the speakers to look into the future and to give one suggestion how they would see like one improvement around those reimbursement model, however they would look like, Catalonian way or German way or French way. So maybe we can go then from
the poor company.
Yeah.
Tiny poor company.
Tiny poor company, the startup, Malatika, Frederick, do you have
or any
a
other. So just I guess that this will happen sooner or later. That having some kind of a sandbox to test any European innovative or digital health solution would help, especially if the result can be taken as a proof for everybody, for every country, because it makes things more simple, because we are experiencing a movement of digital health companies and AI health companies moving from Europe to the States, because the regulatory framework and the payment framework is much easier than here, and investors ask their companies, hey guys, forget that, forget France, forget Germany, forget for sure Spain, and go to the States where everything is easier. And this is our future. So we will have digital health solutions coming from States, and then all the regulations will change because the Americans must land, because it's the only thing that you will have as a government, as a citizen.
And that's another big discussion point. But yeah, thank you for bringing this up here, Sandra.
What I would like to see is a few of the ongoing initiatives that are going around Europe to actually unify the framework for assessing. Again, I would never advocate one point of entry for all. For me, that's crazy. I mean, it's the worst case of bottleneck and incapacity ever. However, all the entry points need to behave the same way and agree on that. We have a health technology assessment coordination group actually looking at how we implement the new regulation that is getting enforced. I think it's next year. No, this year actually. In January, it started the fair piloting. And we also have another initiatives. One of them, Edita project. Take a look, guys, because there's a lot of guidance there on how the technologies will be assessed to have a common framework around Europe. I'm proud to say that the inspiration for that project came from Spain, and actually from the Spanish network of agencies and from Aquas in concrete. And the other thing I would like to see is, for me, the main bottleneck is actually the whole certification. But not because it's a lot of burden and we need to dysregulate. And sorry, I'm using this tone and I'm not trying to be sarcastic. But it's the kind of words that you hear. And we need to realize we are dealing with people's life, and security is a must, and efficiency and effectiveness is a must. So the point is that we need to accompany companies to actually be able to present the evidence that should be required. And to do that, we need more certifying bodies, more common regulation that is not such a big business certifying, which we haven't talked about, but probably needs to be said as well. And for the sandbox, let's have, again, this ecosystem approach. Part of it is, if what you are heading for is a priority for the system, here you have the sandbox.
Thank you.
And that's what I.
Francois, what would you like to change, improve, or maybe nothing?
Well, I would not pledge for more regulation because I think we have enough in Europe on more regulatory work. I think we have the biggest constraints when it comes to assessing a software medical device and getting the certification, especially with the new regulation at the European level in place. But for sure, we believe that the different health agencies in Europe assessing a software medical device will more and more assess the transposability of the data some companies can get. I hope in Spain, for example, if we go in Spain and we obtain a reimbursement in Catalonia, we will have the reimbursement open for all the other regions in Spain, because when you go to a country and you can look only to a small region of one country, even if it's a very innovative one, we want to have an investment that is in accordance with the potential of the market. And third, I believe that the way to assess digital tools will evolve. We invent criteria to assess the benefits of the tool. Organizational criteria are the most effective one to obtain, because when you design your clinical trial, you can be almost certain to obtain a benefit proven if you are subtle enough, I would say, in the design. So yeah, I'm very positive on the development of the market. Italy is going toward reimbursement. I'm happy to hear that Spain is moving towards that as well, and that Germany also keeps on progressing every year.
Thank you. I'm afraid we have to stop this discussion here. There are so many more questions I would like to ask to our speakers. And I think we will continue this discussion at the other occasion. ECH Alliance is organizing a number of different events during the year under our flagship events program. So I would like to thank you all, Francois, Sandra, Frederic, and Tobias, for joining me here today at the Mobile World Congress Digital Health and Wellness Summit. And I will close this session with the round of applause to our speakers. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Luisa Stuve, and I work for the French Ministry of Health at the Digital Health Delegation. It's my pleasure today to speak to you about the early access to reimbursement for digital medical devices in France, also referred to as PECON. This presentation was developed together with my colleague Vincent Vercamer, who's actually the focal point for PECON in France and who you may contact for any further questions. Genius will also provide you any further responses to any topics I'll raise today. First, what does it include? Both digital therapeutics and remote patient monitoring. This scheme has been operational since March 2023 in France, and it aims to accelerate patient access to innovative digital medical devices. It allows for the temporary reimbursement of those solutions by French National Health Insurance for the period of 1 year. That period is non-renewable, while enabling those manufacturers to finish the applications for the incorporation of the standard reimbursement procedure while already deploying the solution. So the objectives of PECON, I think they're quite clear: to accelerate patient access to those promising solutions, to encourage also innovation thereof, because you offer manufacturers the opportunity to deploy their products more quickly, and to still collect relevant clinical and economic data that enable to assess the real-world effectiveness and efficiency of DMDs. There's nothing better than to have data from patients already using that solution in real life. First, innovativeness. That seems obvious, but you need to provide initial proof of notable improvement over existing solutions. Second, maturity. The product must be sufficiently developed for real-world deployment. And third, safety and security. The DMD must have regulatory certifications, including the CE markage, and to attest its safety for patients. Now, we can say that a successful application contains both that initial evidence of the claimed benefit, but also a justification that the remaining clinical or organizational evidence will be available before the end of PECON. So during that year, so it means that after 6 months of deployment, you already need to have that process of filing for permanent reimbursement ongoing. And third, you need to prove somehow an appropriate comparison against either standard of care or an alternative reimbursed solution or the absence thereof. But there needs to be sufficient justification in that regard. As I said beforehand, solutions that are being considered are both DTX, digital therapeutics. They are also CE marked, as I said beforehand, so that this can be medical device applications or software and so on that are used to treat and manage specific health conditions. Examples, solutions for diabetes treatment, cognitive rehabilitation, or chronic pain management. A second type of solution that's being reimbursed as part of PECON are remote telemonitoring activities. These are also CE marked, and those are tools that allow healthcare professionals to remotely track the health status of patients with specific health conditions. For example, platforms for monitoring patients with chronic heart failure, diabetes, or acute respiratory diseases. Those are CE marked Acuity Tech Care solutions. So that's a remote monitoring platform dedicated to oncology. It enables healthcare professionals to remotely track the health status of cancer patients. Continuum deploys a unique approach that integrates local nurses, a coordination support unit, and a remote medical monitoring application. And a third one, which is Axamove, that's the company deploying a digital platform that specializes in rehabilitation and adapted physical activity. And it offers a personalized program that allows patients to perform exercises at home while being still remotely monitored by healthcare professionals. So you see, the area of solutions is quite large here in terms of solutions that can be reimbursed. And we strongly encourage applicants to come and try and apply for reimbursement. Thanks to PECON, these innovations can now benefit from faster market access while still finishing the demonstration of their clinical benefit before potential integration into the standard reimbursement system. Therefore, from all actors, PECON has been perceived as a significant advancement for the digital innovation and digital healthcare system. The challenges regard, obviously, the sustainability of reimbursement after that 1-year period, but also the integration of digital medical devices into standardized healthcare pathways, but also the reuse and prescription by healthcare professionals and the use of patients, which are not yet necessarily familiarized with that. And we count on all of your support to make that possible. And in the meantime, stay tuned and look at what we do on Genius, where everything here I just said is explained in detail. Thank you so much.